How's everybody today? Well, you know, practice was a lot better today. I didn't think we practiced like we need to yesterday, but the players responded and practiced much better today. You know, the biggest issue, I think, is not necessarily your opponent sometime, but really yourself and human nature in terms of, you know, what do you want to accomplish, what do you want to do, what are you willing to do to strive forward to do it, and how you sustain to do better, to do more, and not be satisfied with where you are. And that's something we certainly want to work with our players on so that we can continue to improve and play better in this game. And we're certainly looking forward to our home opener. You know, our fans have been great. You know, we've had a tremendous amount of support in Bryant-Denny Stadium, and we've had our share of success there as well. But, you know, this team's one of those fastball, no-huddle teams, go fast as they can. You know, I think when you make a lot of noise when you play a team like this and make them go on silent, you know, that really helps our players, especially on defense. So, you know, our crowd can create a big advantage in this game. And I think if they're looking forward to it like I'm looking forward to it, they'll be excited about it, because it's not necessarily about anything but helping our team. So we don't really have any new injuries to report. And, you know, we're making progress.
Start back here with Matt.
I just want to say, as far as their offense, obviously they're a spread team for wide receivers, and you mentioned just up-tempo. What else aside from that is unique about their offense, and what kind of challenge do you feel like they pose offensively to especially the pass defense?
Well, I think conceptually, you know, they're one of the most difficult offenses that we play to defend. They're very well coached. They do a really good job of you know, using personnel. They use not just 4 wideouts, but they use 3 wideouts, a tight end. They use 2 backs and 3 wideouts. They use regular people. So there's a lot of multiples. There's a lot of formation adjustments. Really do a nice job in the passing game of trying to see what you're in defensively, whether they use Nike checks or hard count to get the defense to show itself, and, you know, then try to call a play that's going to beat that. So there's a lot of challenges in playing, you know, this team, and their players do a really good job of executing. They're very well coached. So pace of play is an issue, as well as them reading what you're in and running the most advantageous play, and their ability to execute. And conceptually, they're, you know, very well, you know, scheme-wise, they're very well managed and coached.
And now that you had a chance to break down film of their defense, what did you think of the safety number 20 for them?
He's a good player, really good player. I think their players really play hard on defense, and you know, he's definitely a playmaker. He's involved in a lot of plays, and the way their scheme is set up, you know, I think it's set up so the safeties can make a lot of plays, and he's certainly one of their best players.
You had mentioned after the game that you were pleased with the way you dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, but looking at the film, how do you think you pass protected?
We could do better. I think anytime you get sacked, you didn't pass protect very well. I do think that you have to give Wisconsin's edge rushers, their 2 defensive ends are really good rushers, very quick, especially in passing situations. But that's something that we definitely need to improve on, especially on the edges. And, you know, the quarterback's got to do a better job of not taking sacks. You know, when we do get pressure, you know, get the ball out your hand, make a guy miss, you know, take off running, whatever you got to do. But we don't want to have negative plays. It usually stops drives. So it's something that we certainly need to work on.
Right back over to Michael.
Yeah, just wondered, when you look at their offense, does it look like any of the teams you played this year or last year? Does it prepare you for anything you'll see in the future?
Well, there's a lot of similarities to, you know, sort of the Ole Miss, Auburn, you know, type. But, you know, their running game is really a lot of wide zone. I mean, which, you know, they're really trying to stretch the gaps with big splits and, you know, run wide zone plays to, you know, spread the defenders out and try to get a crease. And, they're pretty effective. You know, they're very effective offensively, and but I'd say those two teams probably are close similarity.
Just on their quarterback, he had 350 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. What did you see from him on film, and what does he do well?
Well, you know, first of all, he's the coach's son, and he plays like that. He's a very bright player, you know, very instinctive, very smart, has a quick release, and is very accurate with the ball. And, you know, they've got some good receivers, and they did a very, very nice job of throwing and catching it, but they had really good balance. They ran the ball well, too. So, you know, it's going to be a challenge for us both ways. And, you know, they're going to package their runs and passes. So, you know, when you're in a good pass defense, they're going to run the ball. And when you're in a run defense, they're going to pass it. So, you know, it's always a challenge for the defense when you play against these kind of teams.
Wanted to ask about Kenyon Drake. As a defensive-minded coach like yourself, how difficult is it to defend a guy that's constantly in motion, can do so much versatile things out there on offense?
Well, I think that, you know, when you have players like Kenyon Drake that have a lot of diversity in terms of their ability to run the ball, very good receivers, very good space players, ability to make you miss and hard to tackle in space, you know, those kind of guys are, you know, very, very valuable to our team. Kenyon Drake is very valuable to our team because of what he can do. And when you play against guys like that, it's always a problem. Because they're a little bit of a mismatch guy for certain guys to have to cover, and when you motion them around and move them around a lot, it's hard to control who is covering them. So, plus he can run the ball effectively, and he's a good pass protector, and he's a good third down back. So, guy has a lot of diversity as a player, and you know, we're certainly happy to have him back. And I think, you know, what we're trying to get him to do is just focus on, you know, don't try to make plays, just take what they give you and make the most of it. And, you know, when he does that, he's extremely effective.
Two more right over here from Mark.
Coach, I wanted to ask, as you know, as a defensive coach in Origin, you're talking about this offense that offers kind of unique challenges and special setups. Obviously, the number one goal is to win, and there's obviously always pressure to win. But I was wondering, as someone who, again, you know, has a background in defensive coaching, if you don't look at games like this as almost not fun, but like as a kind of rewarding opportunity to kind of deal with a new kind of offense than what you typically face and scheme for that.
Well, you know, we see this kind of offense more often than we used to, and I would say that years back, you know, when you didn't see this very often, it was very, very challenging because you had to do a lot of different things, and the players had to learn a lot of different things. I do think it's still challenging because they seem to come up with new ways to complement the things that they do. Which, you know, always makes it difficult to defend. But anytime people spread you out and make you defend space, you know, the multiples of missed tackles can go up, mistakes in coverage can go up. You know, the defensive players have to further to run to the ball. And, you know, so keeping them fresh is an issue. There's a lot of challenges to play this kind of offense, and I've been very challenged this week as a coach to prepare our players for it. And, you know, there's a lot of things that, you know, they need to learn so that they can go out there and execute and do. And communication is a big part of it. And when they're going fast, no huddle, you know, communication is always an issue. So that's something that we've tried to work hard on this week. It was much better today than it was yesterday.
Last one in the back seat.
Coach, I wanted to ask about two receivers. First, how is Cam Sims, kind of how's his comeback continuing? How is he this week?
Well, he's doing, you know, okay. You know, the plan for him is, you know, we're not trying to throw him totally into the fire. We're, you know, we got a plan where he gets so many reps a day, and we're trying to increase that on a weekly basis by maybe 10% or so in terms of how many reps he gets. I think that, you know, the thing that when you have guys that have these kinds of injuries, the worst thing you can do is push them too hard. They get some overuse problems. They get tendonitis. They get swelling in their knee. And then all of a sudden you got to shut them down. All right, so that's what we're trying to avoid. And so far it's worked pretty well. And he practiced yesterday and practiced today. You Is he 100% yet? I think he's healthy. I don't think he's been able to put enough work in to get back 100%, but he's getting closer and closer, and we're encouraged. We're very encouraged with the progress that he's made to get to where he is right now.
And the other one is Chris Black, and did he survive the conversation you had after his kickoff return on Saturday?
Yeah, he did. He did all right. I mean, but in his defense, in all honesty, that was our fault. This is a situation that we practiced, and we have always practiced in camp when it's less than 2 minutes in the game. And as coaches, there were 4 or 5 minutes to go in the game. And when there's 2 minutes to go in the game and the other team doesn't have any timeouts, you know, you don't want to take a chance on getting hit and fumbling, so you're going to take it out. First of all, they do you a favor when they kick it in the end zone, which they did, so we shouldn't even brought it out. All right, that's number one. But number two is, with that much time left to go in the game, he needs to go get as much as he can get. All right, and we didn't do a very good job up front, which we have coached and we have done, of blocking the people on the hands team when it's not an onside kick. They didn't do a very good job. So it wasn't all Chris Black's fault. It was our fault as coaches. All right, we had not gone over that situation with him where there was more than 2 minutes to go in the game and he had to get what he could get, and the hands team knows that they need to do a much better job of blocking so we can get better field position. But you know, if they kick the ball in the end zone in a situation like that, when you have the hands team in, they're doing you a favor, so you never want to bring it out. So it wasn't a bad conversation. It was a teaching moment. It's unfortunate it happened, but you know, we'll take the blame for that one.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you.